So hello guys, and welcome to another video, and Nintendo seems to be handling the Donkey Kong franchise really weirdly right now. Pretty soon, we have Super Nintendo World having the Donkey Kong Country expansion. I think it might already be open in Japan. And then we also have Donkey Kong Country Returns HD, which seems to be a very lackluster port of the Wii game. So it really seems weird how Nintendo has been handling the franchise right now, as well as its identity in general, because I think Donkey Kong, at least until the next mainline game, is kind of going through a bit of an identity crisis right now. They don't really know what to do with it. Like, they sometimes want it to be completely based on returns, sometimes they'll acknowledge K. Rool, then other times they completely forget him, like they did back when they were releasing Returns and Tropical Freeze. And they re-released the Rare games, but barely acknowledged them outside of, like, the movie. So it's just really weird what has been happening. So I'm gonna be discussing this with Dimitri, since it's just been really weird, and I think it's kind of worth talking about.
Yeah, when it comes to Donkey Kong specifically, Nintendo has treated the series very weird on the Switch. They got their best-selling console of all time and one of their most iconic series, yet they haven't released a new game. Now at this point in the Nintendo Switch's life, it's quite obvious why, but considering what they're doing recently, there seems to be something brewing up, but at the same time, you never know with Nintendo, because, like Reese was saying, there seems to be an identity crisis, where they don't know whether or not they want Donkey Kong Country to be associated with how it was with the Rare games, or if they want it to be associated with Donkey Kong Country Returns. And I say Donkey Kong Country Returns because there's really not much influence from Tropical Freeze, which I think is a better game.
Yeah.
And it has better villains.
Yeah, when we look at Super Nintendo World, they really only seem to be pulling from Returns there, because recently there was an article with someone who went there recently. I forgot where it was from, but they were mentioning how the only references in Super Nintendo World were from Returns. There was nothing from Tropical Freeze, because they mentioned how there was barely any music from David Wise, including the music from the Rare games, as, like, with the exception of the main theme of the series. But there really wasn't any, like, acknowledgement of Tropical Freeze either. It was really just Returns. I know Super Nintendo World was designed, like, 10 years ago. I think it was around 2015, I believe. But at that point, Tropical Freeze was already out. And I know Returns kind of seems like the basic thing to, like, kind of build a Donkey Kong theme park out of. That's, like, it kind of makes sense, but it's weird that they've only acknowledged that game. The Mario side of Super Nintendo World at least had some pretty cool references to other Mario games. Like, you had Mario Kart with the ride, and as well as the Yoshi's Island ride as well, which was pretty cool. And then you'll see, like, little references to, like, Mario 64, Galaxy, a lot of the classic older Mario games, and different things like that. And I know they don't reference every game. Like, you won't see anything related to, like, the RPGs or, like, Mario Tennis or something like that. But for Donkey Kong, the classic Rare games and Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze are, like, way more important to, like, the Donkey Kong franchise than, like, the Mario spin-offs are to Mario. Like, these are the mainline games. So it's weird that the Donkey Kong section is only acknowledging, like, one game. And there's, like, no sign of, like, anything, like music, characters, K. Rool, of course. It's weird, because, like, they acknowledged, like, it's, like, I think the Tiki Tak tribe is shown in, like, Super Nintendo World there, which is, like, specifically the villain of Returns. So it's weird. It's like the Tiki Tak tribe, the main villains of the Donkey Kong franchise now. I don't know. Like, it's so weird. I don't know what Nintendo wants us to think the main villain of Donkey Kong is now. They sure don't want us to think. They sure don't want us to think it's K. Rool now.
It'd be like if they had Super Mario Land at Super Nintendo World, and that was the only game that it was based on, and Bowser was nowhere to be seen and none of his minions, but instead it would be Tatanga and his minions, being like the off-brand versions of Goombas, Bullet Bills, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Although that would be awesome.
Yeah, that
But
would be cool.
I do love Donkey Kong Country Returns HD. Well, I do love Donkey Kong Country Returns, but I will say the Tiki Tak tribe has nothing on K. Rool and the Kremlings. It's so weird because with Mario games, we want a villain that's not Bowser for once, but for Donkey Kong, we want the one who was the villain of the series back. Like,
Yeah.
I kind of get it. They were kind of going for a different direction, but try telling me that the Tiki Tak tribe are more iconic than K. Rool and the Kremlings. I don't think so.
Yeah, it just seems so weird to choose that villain specifically to represent, like, the villain of the Donkey Kong franchise at Super Nintendo World. Like, I know they were basing it off of Returns. Like, I mean, yeah, I could see, like, basing the locales of the park off of Returns and, like, the ride off of Returns. But, like, I think it's going a bit too far, like, having, like, the Tiki Tak tribe represent it, because, like, I think they could have had the Returns locale at Super Nintendo World, but have K. Rool as the villain there instead. That would have made much more sense, considering, like, how that is kind of, like, the basic representation of, like, Donkey Kong there. But it's weird. With K. Rool, it seems like Nintendo goes back and forth on whether they want to acknowledge him or not. Like, Nintendo brought him back for Smash Ultimate and did, like, a big thing with that. And even hypes up the re-releases of Rare games on NSO. They even they weirdly released the Donkey Kong Land games, like, separate, but, like, a week apart for each of them, which was really interesting and had, like, a trailer for each of them. So it seems like they kind of hype up the Rare Donkey Kong games whenever they come out. And then the movie also acknowledged a lot of the Rare stuff as well. Like, not like K. Rool, but, like, at least stuff like Chunky Kong, Swanky Kong, the DK Rap, different things like that. And the world in the movie kind of seemed to be very reminiscent of, like, the, stuff from the Rare Donkey Kong games. So they took a lot of inspiration there, but, like, outside of that, they don't really kind of acknowledge that. They're basically like, oh, Returns is the base of the series. Like, and then they just completely shove all the stuff from the Rare games off to the side. Like, the characters and basically everything. It's almost like how they treated Mario back in the 2010s with New Super Mario Bros. And everything, where they had New Super Mario Bros. Wii basically be the face of the franchise.
Yeah, with that being said, with Super Nintendo World, the Mario section is definitely based on Super Mario 3D World the most, but not having any references to the Rare games, it's just weird. Like you said, there's an identity crisis with that. Like, they don't know whether or not they want to acknowledge the Rare games. It seems that they want to put more of a focus on the Tiki Tak tribe, which, like you said, I mean, that was only the villains in one game. But, I don't know. It seems like... But that wasn't even a game developed by Nintendo EPD. If they really wanted to acknowledge games made by them, then it would all be themed around Donkey Kong Jungle Beat. Apparently that new Donkey Kong game is going to be made by Nintendo EPD.
Yeah. I just thought of a really kind of funny and kind of evil thought. Imagine if they bring back the Tiki Tak tribe in the next Donkey Kong game and just did some new form of it, kind of like how they how they did it, like sometimes how they have different forms of Bowser in different Mario games. Imagine if they're like powered up again and they kind of do the new Super Mario Bros. Approach with Donkey Kong now. Man, just imagine
Tiki
that.
Kong's Fury?
Yeah. Oh, man.
I don't know. Everyone wants the Kremlings back and K. Rool, but they just seem to be focusing on the villains from Donkey Kong Country Returns. And speaking of, with the Nintendo Switch, it's clear that the end is near. We're already seeing the Nintendo Switch 2 leaks, and anything at this point, it just feels like, well, the next generation's approaching. There's going to be some stuff for the Nintendo Switch left, but nothing major. And what I'm thinking is that they did plan to have a big Donkey Kong game on the Nintendo Switch, but by the time that was finished up, it was like, okay, save this for the next console. Because apparently it's going to be a 3D platformer, but I'm guessing with Donkey Kong Country Returns HD, that's pretty much like, okay, well, we still gotta release a game considering everything that's going on, especially with the theme parks, so why not just put it on the Switch? And that is a good idea. We've seen
Yeah.
Nintendo release a lot of remakes, most of them being phenomenal. Mario vs. Donkey Kong is a great game. Also, of course, Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door.
Yes.
When it comes to remake standards, that and Super Mario RPG are the gold standard. But with this, it looks... I'm not sure if you could say Donkey Kong Country Returns is bad, but in terms of this being a remaster or remake, it's $60, so whatever you call it, it's the same thing. This is not looking great. I've had my
No.
reservations about Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, and while not much was done to change up that game, at least there was some work done, but this in some instances looks worse than the Wii game.
Oh yeah.
And I think the reason why is this seems to just be based on the 3DS version.
Yeah.
Like, it seems to be the same code, using the same graphics, but upscaled, with
Yeah.
some minor enhancements, but nothing major.
Yeah, it's so weird. Like we were saying with like Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, that is at least going from like a 3DS game to the Switch game, and they at least did like a little bit here. But with this, like this is just like a straight up downgrade, like from the Wii version in some areas, I would say. And it's just so weird. I think they were really only doing this to like have the 3DS content in the game, but it just seems like really the lazy way to go about this. I don't like to call game development lazy, but like it just seems so weird that they just chose to remaster the 3DS version of the game just to have the 3DS levels, rather than remaking the 3DS levels in the Wii version of the game and kind of remastering that version. This just looked like, for $60, the fact that we're getting like this version of the game, it just looks so weird. And this is such a strange decision, I would say. If Nintendo wants to treat Donkey Kong like a major franchise, like represented in stuff like Super Nintendo World and the Mario movie, this just seems like a really weird way of kind of pushing the franchise. Well, I guess not pushing it forward, but like just kind of releasing something new for the first time in a while. Because this is the first like Donkey Kong related release, not counting like Mario vs. Donkey Kong, since the Tropical Freeze port. And with this being like the only, I know we're probably gonna get something pretty soon, but with this only being the only Donkey Kong related thing we've gotten in a while, it's just kind of crazy. And it really isn't a good decision at all. Like, this really should have been like $30 at most, and ideally based on the Wii version of the game as well. So this is just a really awkward way of going about porting Donkey Kong Country Returns here. And especially with the fact that Nintendo is kind of off and on about treating this like the face of the series. Like, this is quite a way to treat the face of the series, just like with basically a upgraded version of the worse version of the game.
It's so weird. And the whole thing with that is, you would expect them to treat it with more respect. I would say that it should be treated like Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe, where it gets a complete overhaul, made to look like a modern game. And I will say, even upscaled Donkey Kong Country Returns looks beautiful. But still, basing this on the 3DS game, and considering that it's the face of Super Nintendo World's Donkey Kong Country expansion, it's not a good look. And
Yeah.
Nintendo's done this before. They've released ports or remasters, whatever they're called, where there's minimal effort. We look at something like Luigi's Mansion 2 HD and Skyward Sword HD. Yeah, the controls of Skyward Sword HD were improved upon. There were a few other quality of life improvements. But at the same time, there are just so many better ones out there. made by Nintendo. Even that's just crazy.
Yeah, and the fact that, like you were saying, it's like how they've been releasing like so many other like full-on remakes and remasters of games for the same price. And even cheaper, like with Mario vs. Donkey Kong. That was a full remake, but it was $10 cheaper than this and looks way better at the same time. So, and it's kind of interesting. I saw on the website, the official website, they actually went out of their way to make brand new renders for this game, which they usually do for things like remakes. But they put so much effort into like the advertising side of it, like with renders and artwork and things. But the actual game itself looks about as low effort as Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, if not lower effort.
I would say even lower.
Yeah. I really
Funny,
feel
they're focusing on advertising instead of the products. They become Apple.
Yeah, I feel like this is really a new low for their ports, I would say. I mean, not remakes, because we see how bad they can get with, like, Game Freak. And, well, I guess not just Game Freak, but Ilka as well. With Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. But, yeah, on the Nintendo side of things, I know this was developed by Forever Entertainment, but, like, in terms of, like, ports, this is just really weird, I would say. And it just kind of exemplifies how weird Nintendo has been treating Donkey Kong recently. This combined with the identity crisis that Donkey Kong has had. Nintendo doesn't really know how they want to treat this franchise right now. Like, we get very minimal, low-effort ports, and they also want to push it in things like the movie and Super Nintendo World, but at the same time, for certain things, they also want to have the most, like, basic interpretation of it based on one single game with Country Returns. And I don't know how they want to handle this franchise. I feel like it's gonna be until the next game that we see how they really definitively want to treat this and actually how they want to push this franchise forward. Because at the moment, it's just really confusing.
Now, I will say, I did kind of look at the things like releasing the Donkey Kong Land trilogy on Switch Online and hyping them up to be, well, could there be a new game coming soon? I don't know if it's directly hinting at that. I think they're doing that to promote the theme park. But I do think that a new game is sooner than later at this point. I think that they want Donkey Kong to be one of their big IPs again. And there's probably going to be big plans for the series, considering, you know, the theme park, Donkey Kong's role in the Mario movie. You don't do that if you don't want your IP to become the next big thing, because it was.
Yeah.
It was until they just dropped the ball and didn't release anything for 10 years. But at the end of the day, it's a very lazy port, which is shockingly worse than the original, with a lot of the effects missing. And I'm really hoping that they bring back K. Rool and the Kremlings, because, yeah, the villains in Tropical Freeze are cool. I can't say the same for Returns, but they're alright.
Yeah.
They shouldn't be the face of the series, though.
Yeah.
But
like you
overall,
said,
Nintendo needs to make up their mind.
Like you said, with how they're treating the Tic-Tac tribe right now, it's like taking a very random Mario villain and just making it like the face of... Imagine if they took like something like King Ollie or Wart from Super Mario Bros. 2 and just made it the face of the series just randomly. Like that's what they've been doing with Donkey Kong. But yeah,
To be fair, it is a main series game, and there is more significance of Tiki Tong over King Ollie to the series.
yeah.
But I get what you're saying.
Yeah, but I really hope the next game like paints like a better picture for like the series with how they're treating the series, and I'm really hoping they'll bring back K. Rool and the Kremlings in the next game and actually do something like more interesting. I would say, even if they do have like a new villain, I hope they at least like have like K. Rool like appear in the game in like some form, just like just to show us that they haven't completely forgotten about K. Rool after it was added the Smash Ultimate and everything. But yeah, we'll just have to see. I'm hoping the next new mainline game isn't too far off, because like I could definitely see it releasing early in the Switch 2's lifespan. But with the Switch 2, there is just so much going on right now that I guess we'll see whatever the Switch 2 has in store pretty soon, and hopefully Donkey Kong will be fairly early in that that system's lifespan. But anyways, thank you guys for watching this video. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more, and make sure to check out my Discord and Blue Sky if you want to. Stay perky!
And keep calm and dot on.